In today's video, we are going to talk about analytics for your Squarespace website. So how to track how many people are visiting your website and what they're doing on your website. I'm going to give you a quick tour around Squarespace analytics. I'm going to tell you why I hate Google Analytics, and I'm going to show you my favorite tool that I love to use to track analytics on my website. It's called Plausible Analytics. If you're new here, my name is Shannah, and I am a Squarespace web designer in New York City. I create websites and sell website templates to service-based solopreneurs and other people doing meaningful work in the world. Now let's dive in. So let's start with Squarespace Analytics. If you are in your website dashboard, if you just go down here to Analytics, you will get to your Squarespace Analytics information. Now there are a few different dashboards here, and I'll give you a quick tour. One thing I want to note is you're probably going to see this up here that says cookie banner enabled. You do want to use a cookie banner on your website. It's really important for privacy. But if people do not accept tracking cookies on your website, your analytics data is never going to be perfect. Honestly, your analytics data is never going to be perfect anyway. But unless people accept cookies, every page view on your website is going to be tracked as a separate visit. You just need to accept that and move on with your life because that's the way it goes. So as we look through the data, keep that in mind. Now we're here on our traffic dashboard. Up here on the right, you can select any different time range you want to look at. We're going to look at this month to date. And once you select that, it updates on all the different dashboards that you're looking at as you move through your analytics. Now on our traffic dashboard here, we can see how many visits there have been to our website. And as I mentioned, every page view is likely going to show up as a visit here. So I can see a chart of how many visits I've had every day this month to date. And if I scroll down here, I can see where people are coming from at a high level, and we'll drill into this a little more on a different dashboard. I can see which device they're using, desktop, mobile, or tablet. Here I can see which browsers they're using and which operating systems they're using. Here I can click through to see bounce rate information, how many people are jumping off my website after they look at just one page. It's pretty high. Here, again, I have this estimated unique visitor data, but because of cookies, this isn't going to be particularly accurate, but it might be close. And then here are the number of page views, how many different pages were visited on my website throughout the month. Now let's hop over to the traffic sources tab. This is where I can get a little bit more granular information about where people are coming from to visit my website. So here I have a chart which shows different colors for direct, social, search, and referral, but I usually scroll down here where I can get more granular data about how many people are directly coming to my website. That means they have the link somehow. They've clicked on a link on a page, or they just have the link saved, or they just type it into the browser. That's direct. I think if they don't really know where something comes from, that also just goes into direct. Here I can see which search engines people are using to get to my website. That's kind of interesting. It's not all Google, but it's mostly Google. Here I can see which social platforms people are visiting my website from. And then down here is another bucket for just referral. You might find another variety of things down here under referral. So now I've drilled into my traffic sources, and if you had e-commerce, there's some more information you could get here about where people are coming from that are actually purchasing things on your website. If I hop over here to search keywords, the information that I see here is the same as the information that you would see on your Google Search Console if you connect Squarespace to your Google Search Console. I personally prefer to see this information in Google Search Console, but you can also see it here. So what this is showing you, if I scroll down here, I usually like the data more than the charts, which keywords people are searching for that have your website showing up in search. That would be the number of impressions. Here, how many people actually clicked through when they saw your website appear in search results, and which page is appearing in those search results when people are searching for that keyword. So you have all that information here if you don't want to go to Google Search Console to find it. Over here is our geography tab, and this is where I can see where people are coming from in the world to visit my website. Most people are coming from the US, but I've got people from all over the world, and I can drill in here to see what states and then what cities people are coming from to visit my website. Now let's hop over to the engagement dashboard. Here is where I can see more information about what pages people are actually visiting. So let's scroll down. I've got a chart so I can see visually which pages people are visiting most frequently on my website. And then I've got this list view below so I can see how many views each page gets, how long people are staying on that page, what the bounce rate is for that particular page, and what the exit rate is for that particular page. This next tab is your activity log. If you have this turned on, which you would do in the same place where you set up your cookie banner, Squarespace will show you for the last, I think maybe 7 days, information about every single person that visited your website. So you can see what date and time they visited, where they came from, who referred them, what their IP address is, and what page they visited. There'll be an entry here for every page visit on your website. This is the raw data that is rolled up into those charts and lists that you see on the other dashboards. While we are looking at this, I will make a note that I have done some checking of some of these IP addresses, and there are quite a few bots that slip through into Squarespace Analytics. I do find that Plausible does a little bit better job of stripping out the bots, but there are also some valid websites that get missed on Plausible that are captured here on Squarespace. I'm sure this technology will continue to get better over time, but all bots are definitely not captured. And you can take these IP addresses and plug them into this IP checker, which is my favorite. I will link to it below if you want to obsessively check IP addresses and find out which one is a bot. You don't need to do that, but just know that you can check that and see how many of these are actually bots. This next area here, you can see how many people are submitting forms on your website or clicking buttons on your website. So if I scroll down, again, I have a chart and then I have the detailed information below. Note that you will only have access to this information if you have a core or business plan or higher. On the lowest basic or personal plan, you do not have access to this form and button conversion data. This next tab is for if you have a search bar on your website so people can search for things just on your website. You would see that data here. I don't have a search bar on my website, so I have no data available. And then finally, this is a tab that would show how many people are subscribing to RSS feeds. If you have a podcast that people are pulling in, or people are pulling your blog in on their website using an RSS feed, that data would show up here. And then the last dashboard here is the sales dashboard. If you're selling things on your website and you have a plan that supports e-commerce, there's all kinds of data that you can see here about the things that people have purchased on your website. So that's a quick overview of Squarespace Analytics. It's built right into your Squarespace website. It's going to give you pretty accurate analytics, and you can absolutely just use this to track your analytics. But let's talk about a couple other tools. Now let's talk about why I hate Google Analytics. The first reason is that I find these dashboards overly complicated and difficult to navigate around. So this is my homepage where I can see how many sessions, and I can never even remember how that ties to visits. I think it's visits. I think this is overall views, number of users. So I have this chart, and then if I want to see the pages, I have to maybe look down here. It's not here. Here I can see how people are getting to my website, so I can open this up. I have to make sure I have the right data selected and that it matches, because on every chart, you have to select this date differently. If I want to see what pages people are looking at, I have to go, I think, over here to engagement overview. Oh no, here, pages and screens. Like, I just don't like it in here. I just find it overly complicated and not intuitive. But the other reason I don't like it, data that shows up here is much, much lower than the data that I see on my Squarespace dashboard or my Plausible dashboard. So it's definitely tracking fewer visits to my website than either of those other tools. And that's just enough for me to decide I don't want to use it. So that is why I hate Google Analytics. Now let's take a look at the Plausible Analytics dashboard. Now I started exploring Plausible just because I was trying to look at other platforms, and I was having some issues with one of the plugins on my Squarespace website that was inflating those analytics. So they weren't working very well and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I decided to check out Plausible, and I loved it so much that I have not turned back. Plausible does cost money. So let's hop over to the pricing page here. I pay $90 a year for Plausible, and we'll go through it and I'll talk about why I like it. I have less than 10,000 monthly page views. Most likely, if you're watching my video, you also have less than 10,000 monthly page views. So it would cost $90 a year to use Plausible, but let's go look at it and you can decide if it's worth it. So up here at the top, I have my overall dashboard where I can see how many unique visitors visited my site, the total number of visits. Now, like Squarespace, this data is not going to be 100% accurate. The way that Plausible works is it actually doesn't use cookies at all. Every visitor to your website gets this anonymous alphanumeric code assigned to them when they visit your website, and that code is refreshed every day. So if the same visitor visits your site multiple times on a day, they will count as unique visitors. But if they come back the next day, that's what cookies do. They can kind of keep track of whether the same person visits on multiple days. But Plausible never uses cookies. So that code gets reset every night. So your unique visitor data isn't going to be totally accurate. It could be accurate for a specific day, but otherwise it's not. But as I mentioned, on all platforms, like you're just never going to get perfect on that. So this is kind of approximate data on how many visitors there were. Then we've got our total visits, our total page views, how many views there were per visit. And notice as I'm clicking through, I can see the different chart below. This is my bounce rate, and then how many seconds people are staying on my site. Now I've selected month to date here. Again, just like in Squarespace Analytics, I can select a different time range here. But everything I'm looking at is going to be month to date. So let's just go back to total visits here. And if I scroll down, just right on this same beautiful dashboard, I just love the way it looks. I have all of my information right here. I don't even have to click around to different pages. So over here, let's go back to channels. I can see at a very high level how people are getting to my website. So organic search, direct, organic video would be YouTube, I think. Organic social is different social platforms, and then referrals. And then I can click down a little bit further to get to the specific sources. So I can see specifically YouTube, Perplexity, Facebook, things like that. And then if I click through Google, I can actually see that Google Search Console data. So I have connected Plausible to my Google Search Console. So I'm pulling in that same data here. Again, I'd prefer to go to Google Search Console, but this also can be interesting to look at here. Now, if I hop over here, this is where I can see my page data. So I can go between top pages, so the total pages that people looked at, or just look at the pages where people entered my website, or just the pages where people exited my website. So that's a little bit more granular data than I can get in Squarespace. And sometimes I just like to see what pages are people coming into when they visit my website and then where they go. So I'll show you that a little bit more later. But so here I can see the top pages people visited. If I click here under view details, I can get the full list. If I scroll down more, this is where I can see my geography data. So I've got my map just like in Squarespace. I can see which countries, and then I can drill into the regions, which would be the states in the US, and then particular cities at a lower level there. So I've got that geography data. Over here, I've got my browsers, my operating systems, and my devices. Again, I don't look at that very much, but that information is there. And then down here, you can set up different goals to track. So I have set up Plausible to track how many people are clicking links on my website. If you remember on the Squarespace dashboard, I could track how many people were submitting forms or clicking on specific buttons, but I couldn't track clicks on specific links. So here, if I drill down, I can see which links people are clicking on my website, and I like to see that. And there are other things that you could track if you're doing marketing funnels. You could track how many people land on your 404 page. So there's different things you can do here. I just use this outbound link goals. But the main thing I really love about Plausible is that I can drill into this data in more detail. For example, this is a page that lots of people visit on my website. It's my most popular blog post. If I click on this blog post, I can see how people are getting to this blog post specifically. In Squarespace, I can only see at a high level where people are coming from, but I can't drill in to see which particular blog posts are coming from Google and how people are getting to a particular blog post. So here I can see that most of my visitors are coming from Google. Some are direct, so they've saved the link, and some are coming from this browser, DuckDuckGo. I can also see the people that came in on this page. Did they go look at any other pages? No, they didn't, but I could see that there. Then if I scroll back up here, notice that it's added this filter. So everything on this dashboard is now filtered by just this blog post. So if I go down here, I can see which countries people are coming from to see that blog post. how many people are clicking on links that are in that blog post. So this entire dashboard is updated to filter on this blog post, which is pretty cool. Another very similar thing that I can do is, let's say I have particular sources and I want to know what people are looking at on my website from those sources. So for example, people are coming from Perplexity. So if I click on Perplexity, I can see which pages on my website Perplexity is directing people to. So Perplexity knows that I have this great blog post that talks about the best premium Squarespace templates, and it is sending people to my website from Perplexity, which is very cool. So I didn't have any visitors this month from ChatGPT, for example, but if I did, I could see what ChatGPT or Claude was sending people to on my website. That level of drill down so I can get more information, I really like. Another thing that I personally like is that I can download this data to a spreadsheet. I am kind of a data geek, and I pull all this data together every month into a spreadsheet, which, truth be told, I very rarely go back and look at, but I just like having all my analytics in a spreadsheet. So I like that I can export this data because it makes it easier to pull it into a spreadsheet. If I'm doing Squarespace, I have to manually type everything in. And so I just really like that too. So those are the key reasons that I really love Plausible. I also just love the way it looks. I enjoy being in here. I come in here multiple times a day. I'm trying to grow the traffic on my website and create content. So I just really like to stay on top of my analytics. A couple other things to note about Plausible versus Squarespace Analytics. So if you are looking at your website, when you're working on your own website and you're here in the tool and you're in your config panel, Squarespace knows not to track your visits to your own website. So that is a really great thing about using Squarespace Analytics. You know that your visits are excluded. For Plausible, I do have to manually exclude my IP address from my results, which you are able to do. It's a little bit tricky with a dynamic IP, but I'll link to an article below this video that shows you how to do that, so you can exclude your own traffic from showing up in Plausible. So that's a quick overview of some various options you have for tracking the analytics on your Squarespace website. Squarespace Analytics is a great option, totally free, built into your Squarespace website. I personally love Plausible. I love that I can drill down and get more granular with my data. I just love the way the dashboard looks. But now you know what some options are. Definitely recommend not using Google Analytics. That's my own personal opinion. But hopefully you found this video helpful for making the choice that's best for you for your website analytics. And if it was, please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel below.